Good morning. I presume many of you have lived in a home or will live in a home or in an apartment or whatever else. So we want to make sure that no matter where you are, you know how to do a floor plan. Floor plans are basically the first plan. It's the plan view of any home. And as we move into, or any building, as we move into multi-view drawings, we want to kind of keep this a little bit relevant. Many of you are going to be having to looking at parts in 3 different directions, or 4 or 5 or 6 different directions, but you all will be having to look at or have looked at plans, architectural plans, which consist of plan views, section views, and elevation views is what they call it in architectural. So usually when you're dealing in architectural, and again I'm working here in Civil 3D as a backdrop, but running in AutoCAD, usually when you're doing architectural, you're doing units that are architectural. So you would want to begin in a new drawing here. Know where your template is, go to the architectural, and this time you're going to an architectural not because it's of the color, though it's still there, but because you want to have the units set right. And eventually, potentially, you'll have different dimension styles and whatever else. Remember, draw a rectangle around your object. Now, that's kind of the concept of a reminder. We don't need to do that reminder. We do need to make sure all of our layers are on. And so we would like to do this. Go to Layer right away. And make sure that all my layers are on. You see in this case I do not have all those in living color. I have a little few of them. I've got object. I've got all that set. I'm going to go ahead and turn on and off my keyboard. Remembering that, of course, first thing you do, you don't need to draw that box, but you could think about that box in this case being your lot lines, and you're going to have to realize as well that the civil people, the people who are managing the earth, the mapping people, the planning department, they're dealing in feet dimensions, but you're going to be dealing in inch dimensions. So if 2 drawings are off in scale, many times they will be off by a factor of 12. Just get used to that. So as we talk about using blocks and different drawings and XREFs, that we have to remember that things will generally be off by a factor of 12. I'm going to draw a relatively big block here, big rectangle, because I'm going to talk about a monster lot. I'm going to go mine at 300 feet by 300 feet. That's about a hectare. Now the reason that worked is because already when I opened it, my units, typing units, and for those who then want to start learning this stuff all on the top, units, you want to make sure that you've got the show the menu bar here, and units would be in format. So right along here, I'll show that again. Along any toolbar, you want to show or hide the menu bar. It's a great way to get going now, besides what's on your mouse, to have a concept of how things are organized in a logical way sometimes. So we've changed the units. I'm going to hit zoom extents. Hopefully that works. Escape, 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 Z space, E space, or double click on the middle mouse. And I'm going to put my home on 25-foot offsets. Offset 25 foot from the rear yard, front yard, side yard, and in this case that really is no longer a lot line. It might be something like, I'll put a hidden line there. You're going to start adding layers, adding things like, and that's you're going to add layers, you're going to add line types, all those types of things on the fly. When you do it, you just basically go about by going to here, getting one that you want to start as your best logical starting point, hitting there, front end loading them. So I'm going to go lot underscore setback, immediately perhaps changing the color if you want, and then immediately changing, in this case it's a setback line. A setback line will usually be not a solid line, but it will be, hit cancel here, that's not the line width. You want to not do a continuous line, but probably something like a dashed or a hidden line. Hit that there. Of course, that layer that I drafted was not on that line, so I can go ahead and shift it to lot setback. Alright, that said, I'm going to be a little bit smart about this inspector, and I'm going to X explode right away. Remember, you put things in, you want to explode them. Don't leave them around as one unit, or at least be aware when they start acting funny. Let me give myself a 3-foot buffer. So I'm going to offset 3 feet here, and I'm going to offset 3 feet there, and now I've got what I want to be my building line. F for fillet, click, click, and now the rest of these lines are getting relatively confusing. So I want to go ahead and make sure that all I'm building is on my foundation plan line. So I might go to here and go a new layer, and then house underscore foundation, or wall underscore exterior. I'm going to change that to something that maybe I still want to have that in green. I can make that current, and I can turn off everything, at least the ones that I was using otherwise. Turn off the object especially, and the setback. They're nothing but confusing. However, I did not change that layer, so I need to now go to here, change this, click and click to my current layer, which would be house exterior wall. At this point, you start realizing, boy, why you have a layers and a layers 2 toolbar. You have a layers 2 toolbar so you can go, I just want to freeze that one, and it won't let me freeze it because it's the current layer. I would like to set make objects layer current. I'm going to set this to be my current layer, and now I can go ahead and freeze out the external. Zoom up here. I'm going to go ahead and freeze that one. Okay, now I have my current layer. Here's what you've got to know about doing building plans. There is something called multi-line, which will give you all that ability to draw 3, 4, 5 parallel lines, and I will show that in the next video. However, it's problematic if in fact you've learned to draft with offsets. You have to change how you're doing things. It's problematic in a lot of other ways too, but let's just assume for now I'm going to go ahead and draft up my exterior wall, and I can now do everything by offsets. Basically, you're going to start on some strong baseline, which is going to be dimensioned. But very often you're thinking, or you're coming off a plan, so you're doing the exterior dimensions first, and then most of the things like windows and openings will be dimensioned to the center. And interior walls, it's going to be a horse apiece. But if you think about going to 2x6 or 2x8 walls, or whatever you might do, I don't know, some crazy idea of putting hay in your walls. Those walls are going to thicken on the way in if you're at the edge of a setback. You cannot thicken on the way out if you're at a setback. So I'm just going to go ahead and go offset. I'm going to make my house a monster house for me, 40 feet. And if you noticed visually, 40 feet, boy, that seems pretty small, but that's probably because I had a monster lot. Let me do that again. Offset 40 feet. That's my house, and I'm going to offset this 30 feet. That's a 1,200 square foot house. I don't want to be crazy about this. Right away, fillet. You can hold the shift key if your radius is set to something, but most of the time, space bar, space bar. Now realize later you will be able to kind of p-edit and put it together and offset. But for now, you've got those strong interior, exterior walls. So you really kind of draft the major walls, and now you've got house wall exterior. You might want to have a new layer and call it house wall interior. House wall interior underscore center line. So that one you might want to be red, and you might want its line type to be center, as the case would be, and you might want to set that to be your current layer. And let's say you're going to divide this room up, and I'm going to offset, for instance, I don't know, we're going to make little tiny rooms like I grew up on in Chicago, 15 feet. 15 feet. Fill it holding down the shift key, click, click. Maybe there eventually you're going to want to take this and this. Go ahead and change it to house wall interior. Now, at this point, I'm going to give you a little bit of a hint here. If you're doing a lot of drafting and starting to use a lot of different layers, it's not a bad idea to do this every now and then. Just off on the side, draft off the red one there, and then I'm going to go ahead and clicking here, changing current layer, drafting another one, because then you'll be able to use the match prop. And the match prop exists on the standard toolbar, but it's called match prop. You'll be able to use the magic brush a little bit later. So if I'm just willy-nilly drafting some lines here and I want them to go on a different layer, I can say magic brush and then objects to be changed and then destination layer, and it will change it to the destination layer. So I will quickly show you how multi-line can work. It's problematic in a lot of different ways, but if you do a M line, right, multi-lines look something like this, and they come in double and whatever else. Now, if in fact I were to do an M line, I can't offset it. Cannot offset a multi-line, but I can do this. I can copy parallel. So I can grab it. It grabs on the end, left click, C for copy, and now as I move it around, it's copying parallel even without my ortho. So anytime you copy something, it's being copied parallel. So those who want to eventually get into the multi-line, it is great, but it's really, I would recommend doing the multi-line after you've kind of laid in your base work. All right, this is then an architectural plan. We want to start with dimensions, and we're going to realize that the dimensionings, it's only going to work well if you've got a good standard dimension style set. So we've at this point you've got different dimension styles. Again, going up to here, the format, you've got all the styles laid out. So you can go to your dimension style here. Right now this is set to standard. That probably won't work too well, but if it does, it'll be in inches. What you have to realize about dimensions, and there's one thing to change in the dimension style of consequence and then a few others of lesser consequence, that is the fit tab. So best practices would be to dimension at least one line on any drawing. Once we get started here, you want to at least dimension one thing and then fill in the rest. Inventor and many other programs have a really great automatic an architectural desktop is a great automatic dimensioner, so I'm not going to overly stress it at this point, except to let you know that when you put something down, get one down early, put it on the right layer, and never, ever explode dimensions if you can avoid it. So I'm going to go to here, dimension. You're going to learn to use the align dimension as much as you can. Shift right click from the endpoint here. Shift right click from the endpoint there. And you see that doesn't look too good. And it also came in at 360. So how do you change that? The command is dim style, or you go to format, dimension style. You want to go to modify and go to the fit tab. I won't do the dance for you, but in the fit tab you can start playing around with this number. I usually go up in orders of 10 or 100. Hit OK, set current, close. You see how it got a little bigger? You can do it again. Dim style. The dim style is right here. That's the command there. You can go to modify. You go to the fit tab. I'm going to go ahead and make that 100. You hit OK. Set current, close. That starts to be more of what you want, and then finally you realize you want it in a different format. Even though your units are set to architectural, you also need to set your units in the, we're going to run out of time here, modify there. You're going to go to the primary units and change those to be architectural. Okay, set current, close, and now you got your dimensions kind of what you want. And there's a lot of formatting stuff here that will change. There are two ways to do dimensions. One's with an annotative style. Another one is controlling the scale. Thanks for listening.